We've all seen the parent that has the athletic child that makes it to the NFL or anything, but the story gets so tragic after that because there's no guidance. I mean, I know now it's about this NIL and the money, and I thought, oh, this is a good thing, but the problem is there's no education going along with it.
Marlon Williams has another big
Nice.
All right, welcome to the Big Play Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Marlon Williams. I want to start off by thanking you.
Thank you.
And for having the amazing, wonderful, whose story just gets better and better. The more I learn, the more I read, and the more I talk to people. Nelrae Pasha Ali. Welcome.
Thank you, Marlon. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. My pleasure and my honor. And so I want us to start off, if you're okay with it, telling us about how you got into track and field and just giving us a little bit of, your journey into that world.
Okay, well, it's a funny story. So, so in high school, I mean, I wanted to play basketball.
Okay.
And I was really great defensive player. I think I was defensive player of the week. I was great, but I couldn't shoot. I couldn't get that ball into the hoop. But I was on the varsity because I was very athletic and I was defensive and I could get the ball to the players.
Yes.
And I wasn't really allowed to date when I was in high school. And the football team and the basketball team ran track in the spring. And so that's why I ran track, because the boys and girls got to travel together and I could talk on the bus. And so that's the original reason why I ran track. And the coach immediately said, you need to stop talking. You're actually pretty good. You need to focus. So I did. And I wanted to be a short sprinter, which everyone wanted to run the 100 because that's the glory race. But I happened to be really good at the 400. At the time, it was the 1, the 2, and the 4, and so that's where I won state at Georgia. At the time, we were the largest school, which was quad 4. I think they're like quad 8 now. But so I won state. D-Todd, who I just loved. I was heavily recruited in the Southeast, and D-Todd offered me a full scholarship, and I had always wanted to go to Georgia Tech, so I was already academically accepted, and so the world was aligned, and I went to Georgia Tech, and I was actually happy. I was just like, all right, got a full scholarship. I'm one of 8 kids. This is it. And then coach, I forget which coach it was. It wasn't the track coach because Wendy became my actual coach, even though D-Todd recruited me. And it was the basketball coach that said to me, you could be an All-American if you just stop talking and get focused. And it's kind of like if someone tells you can dream it. And I was just excited to get a full scholarship. I'm one of 8 kids. I'm at Georgia Tech, and then meeting some of my amazing teammates that are All-Americans, Olympians. It just leveled the bar. And so, to me, I was just wanting to hang out with the cool kids. And so happened to do really well and, become an All-American about 6 times with my teammates, and, graduated and went into this little thing called financial planning.
That is so dope. I'm really, so you were actually accepted to Georgia Tech even before you accepted your scholarship.
Yeah, I was. Athlete. And I actually love volleyball. So volleyball, I was all state. I had played volleyball for 2 years, and that was also just so I could socialize with my friends. And I wanted to actually be a volleyball player, but they didn't have full scholarships. So track and field was something that, it was more social, but I just happened to be, good at it. And the one thing was I was competitive. I don't like to lose. So I only took one race where I got my butt beat, and I was like, no, I need to take this serious. So I kind of refocused my life after my sophomore year, getting a butt whipping I forget which, it was regionals or something like that. And it was more so because I didn't take it serious. So that's when I realized, let me at least do what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. So what grade were you in high school when you first started to run track?
I was a freshman.
Okay.
I was a freshman, but ironically, my freshman year was great. It was freshman sensation. It was real easy freshman
Oh,
year because there
wow.
was no expectations.
Okay.
Um, and then my sophomore year, there was this level of expectation that she's going to go to state, she's going to do this, and that pressure kind of freaked me out. And I
Mm,
kept basically I just played around. I mean, I always kept my grades up, but my sophomore year was really actually a turning point because I got to regionals, which was a step before you go to state, and I got my butt beat, and
okay.
it
Okay.
was because I wasn't practicing, and everybody else was, and
Mm,
I'm one of eight, so I have five brothers and two sisters. So my dad loves us all, but he can't come to all these meets. So I had been begging him to come to my meet, and the one meet he came to was the girls where I did not. He was like, I came to your meet today, and I was like, no, not the one. And so that summer, because that was it, I was done, and I had to take an entire summer knowing that I got my butt beat, and I started to really practice and train, and I called my coach, and
mm,
I said, I don't want to ever feel like that again.
mm,
But it was a good thing because you got to put it in there. It's not just talent, but you guys also have to work. And so it's anyone's race, depending on when you get into it. So you had to be physically and mentally. And so I learned that I wasn't mentally prepared, even if I was physically. And so
mm.
I came back my junior year with a purpose. And senior year, I won state in Georgia in the 400 and the 200. And ironically, in high school, they have you running all the different races. So I was also a long jumper, even though I wasn't, but I ended up going to state in the long jump as well. So
Wow. Got to get those points. Might as
yeah,
well
right.
go to
They want
state while we're at it.
exactly. So would not consider myself a long jumper. I'm gonna leave that to one of my best friends, Tasha.
Okay. Okay. Shout out Tasha.
Yes.
Okay. So, you're one of eight. Uh, where did you fall in the eight? Could you
I
give us
am
like
the fifth child. I'm the
okay.
youngest daughter, and if you
Okay.
have all my siblings here, they would act like I was the youngest, but I'm not. I have I'm the fifth child. I have three younger brothers,
Uh-huh.
and of the eight of us, three of us have graduated from Georgia Tech. So shout out to my
Wow. Wow. Absolutely.
they're
Wow.
they kept the bar high. They kept the bar high on there, and
Mm,
that's really the other story because we weren't allowed to just play sports. You had to have academics. My parents were very big about not raising children just to be sport and play. They
mhm.
were raising leaders, so you had to come with the grades. You had to justify it. So to participate in sports was almost like it was a privilege. You're like, okay, doing my grades, I want to participate. So my dad actually, my senior year, I got accepted to Georgia Tech, and he came and got me out of physics class to let me know that you're going to Georgia Tech, whether they give you a scholarship or not. So, um,
Wow.
yeah,
That's
they have
great.
unfortunately ceased. They've passed away. My
Okay.
parents were a generation older than everybody else's parents, so that was probably an
Okay.
advantage, even though I didn't think it was. But
Mhm.
um, they were my friends' grandparents. That's so for my
Got it.
parents were much older. So by the time they had me, they were already, they were advanced. You couldn't get a, you couldn't just be foolish around them. So they
Okay.
were,
Okay. Indeed. Indeed.
yeah.
Well, you have definitely honored their legacy
Oh,
by
thank
being
you.
who you are and accomplishing what you've accomplished. I'm
Oh,
sure
thank
they
you.
are beyond proud, you
Yeah, I
know.
hope so. They would have been proud of you too, though. They were very supportive. They wanted
I appreciate that.
that excellence was a big deal for them. So they
Good stuff. Good stuff.
yes.
Well, it is continuing on to college. I really love the story about your dad coming to physics class and pulling you out, right?
Yes, he
That's so
did.
dope. That's so
And
dope.
yeah, and then I ran. We had an all-state track meet at Georgia Tech my senior year,
Mhm.
and the next time I kept telling him, Dad, I'm really good this time. Come and I was in the finals of the 100, the 200, the 400, and he came and saw me, and it was really exciting. So he wanted to let me know he was very proud. But yeah, he finally got to see me win, which was
That's
great.
great. That's
So
great. Uh-huh.
got
Good
to do
stuff. Good stuff. Well, tell me a little bit about your time when you were competing on a global scale?
Oh yeah. So I mean, going to college, you know, being All-American and having a wonderful team. I mean, we did really well, and so I ran a couple years after college.
Mhm.
Completely different ball game, different
Okay.
energy. I mean, because we were like sisterhood at Georgia Tech. We had each other's back, and so you are going from this family, this connectivity to
Mhm.
dog eat dog world.
Mm.
Your competitors, which that I understood, but it was for me very little camaraderie because I was new and there was so much. I mean, there
Mhm.
was amazing Olympians that I was competing
Mhm.
against, and so it was mentally a different level, but it wasn't fun anymore. That was the
Mm.
thing. Sports for me was a socialization. It
Okay.
was about that camaraderie. I love competing. I love winning, but it was that social aspect that was the reason that kept driving me. And so
Mm.
to run professionally, and I got to be on the U.S. team. That was an amazing honor in the indoors in Barcelona in '95. Got a bronze medal, which was cool.
Yes.
But I thought that was horrible because we didn't get gold. So I just didn't think about it because it was like, well, I wasn't even the fastest one on the team. These women were amazing. But at that level, it was about being self-driven, which was good. My dad was says if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Mhm.
Everybody would do it. So
Everybody.
it's
Everybody would do
those
it.
those times when nothing's going right, it's actually going right. There's lessons to be learned in those
Yes.
little
Yes.
nuggets. So even I have to remind myself when everything's like, why am I
Uh-huh.
doing this? Okay, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
How we
Yeah.
get better. That's how we get better. It's
Mhm.
like practice. Nobody wants to practice. Those
Practice. We're talking
doing
about
10 three
practice.
hundreds. I mean,
Uh-huh.
Wendy, my coach, she'd give me workouts that were just, I think about them now, they're just insane, but we did it. She's like,
Yeah.
today you're gonna do, I think one of the craziest ones was I think it was literally 10 300s and like all out or something like that with
Mhm.
30 seconds, which is not enough time. As soon as you cross the finish line, you're trying to go again, But
Mm.
we
Mm.
did all that stuff. Think about all the accomplishments you guys did on the football team. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
when I got to Georgia Tech, I mean, I used to bring my books to watch football games, and then you know, national champion. Like that's a huge. I mean, so to go through those years where you guys were struggling to be a national champion, I think that's huge. So it takes a lot of people don't realize what it takes to actually be on that level where they're like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, it's good. No, there's the race is just that quick. You're training all hard just for like a millisecond.
Right. Right.
When
Years and years for just a few seconds. Yeah.
yeah, so a coach years ago had asked. It was some camp or something. They said, what is the best athlete in the world? You talk about football, basketball, track, and he said the best athlete is the marathon runner because they're running at a top level for 26 miles. So years ago, the mile when they broke the 5-minute mile, that
Mhm.
was like outstanding. Humans couldn't do it, and now you have people on the 25th mile running like 5 minutes, or under that. Like, do
Wow.
you know how like the efficiency of that body is just amazing? And I don't think the average individual. I mean, even I was thinking about, I'm like, yeah, you're right, hands down. It'd
That's
be
hard to
great
comprehend.
for that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's the consistency. I think that
Mhm.
as we get older, we have to learn. And when you transition from being an athlete at a top level and then into the real world,
Mhm.
some of that athleticism, if not all of it, still is there. It's just, but you got to be consistent. You got to keep getting up and sometimes staying calm because the world sometimes can be crazy. So
Yeah. Yeah.
stay focused.
Mhm. I'm really excited to hear more about your transition, into adulthood outside of
Yeah.
track. But I do want to go back to what you were saying about the collegiate level feeling like a family, and
Yeah. It was
then the professional level being a little
right. It
more
was like if I won my race, it was like we won. When we had the relay, it was
right.
us. So it wasn't Nelrae, it was the team, it was Georgia
Hmm.
Tech, and it was amazing. It was truly a sisterhood and a brotherhood because had the men and
Right.
women, we really supported each other. So
Hmm.
and then going for me, going to the professional level, it wasn't fun. And so what drove me to athleticism was, or to say athletics, was really the socialization. And oh
Mm.
yeah, you happen to be good, and I am competitive. But when you take out the fun and the family, it gets a little bit harder for me. Not
Okay.
everyone that I'm on there, but and it was a little bit lonely because I was no
Mm.
longer around my teammates. I was in Florida. I was training by myself. I was on the and it's really, for me, it was very hard to stay motivated, particularly when you're sitting with a Georgia Tech degree. I'm like, I
Right.
don't know if I. You go to these races, and I'm just. I remember there was actually a very famous athlete. I won't say her name, but it was after an international race, and I was in this whirlpool. So in between races, they put you in the whirlpool so your legs
Mhm.
can come back, and she's phenomenal, a hero of mine. And I actually met her several years ago at a work function, and I told her the story. And she actually, they just called me Georgia Tech. They didn't even know my name. That's how new I was. They're just Georgia Tech, they're just like, something different about you. They were like, don't make this your life. And I was just sitting in the
Mm.
whirlpool like, oh, okay. But it
Yeah.
was really profound, and as I moved on, and what I thought was like, oh, I felt, even though I got to get a little glimpse of the world, and being on the U.S. team, it was
Mhm.
really great in Barcelona. But to me, I didn't get to the Olympics, so I failed. That was my mindset. Oh, I failed, so now I need to move on. But it took someone in corporate America, when they were asking me my background, and I just wouldn't talk about it. Someone had Googled me, and they were like, she really has done a lot. And I was like, yeah, but all my friends are Olympians. So, they were like,
Mm.
that's not
Mm.
the average person, Nelrae. The average
Mm.
person has no idea, has never worked on that level. And I
Right.
was like, yeah, but, because we're competitive, and
We are.
so to me, yeah, I'm just average. I'm just average. It's all relative. And so being from 8 kids, my parents, they're by education were attorneys. I was the shortest in my family, so I thought I was above. I thought I was just average height and average intelligence. I thought everybody
Okay.
gets accepted to Georgia Tech. It was just My parents didn't raise us to. They said you are good and you can do things, but don't think you're better than someone else. You
Mm.
have talent, but never think anyone's beneath you. Don't talk down to individuals.
Right.
If you have certain talents or capabilities, it's because God has a plan for you, and that may be for you to help someone else. So always stay humble, always be
Yes.
grateful. And so I always try to remember that, even when it was really great, I would always because you've seen the folks, they're at the top of their game and the level of arrogance, and boom, 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 and they fall down. So I'm
Mm.
always like, I'm grateful and I'm thankful. And let me keep working hard. Let me keep working hard. So track and field taught me how to be successful in corporate
Mhm.
America, because
Mm.
going in those boardrooms, I didn't feel less than being a woman of color. I mean, I was just Nelrae. And so someone
Mhm.
talking to me that's a man or someone of different race, that was not an issue for me to have a voice and to speak with confidence. Where I saw others that did have challenges, and I didn't understand that
Right.
because I had 5 brothers. This is just normal. And I didn't realize my whole life was establishing this for me to be successful in corporate America. I just thought everyone just spoke where other folks didn't feel their voice was heard.
Mm.
And I see that with a lot of women. So I try to, if I'm there, to allow them to speak and encourage them when you're sitting in a boardroom, because as you can see, I can talk, but others may have a better idea, and I need to encourage them to speak so that we can hear it and be better people versus me just talking all the time. So those are some of the things that I've learned from my family, but
Mhm.
through then just getting older too, I think also. So uh,
Mhm.
20-year-old Nelrae is a lot different than Nelrae now.
Indeed, indeed. I wanna, I think it was a Muhammad Ali quote,
Yeah.
and he said, I'm gonna take the gender out of it, but I think he said, and I'm hoping I'm attributing it to the right person. Any person who thinks the same way at 40 that they did at 20 has wasted 20 years.
Yes, I've heard that you've got to progress. You've got to have different thoughts. I mean, different experiences. I mean, I've in the last 2 years of owning my own business, I've learned so much. I'm a different person than I was just 2 years ago,
Mm.
and There's things that when I started the business that I did, looking back, I'm like, oh, I would have done that differently. I would have done,
Right.
but sometimes you don't know, and you've got to go through those experiences, and
Right.
it makes you a better person. So for me, it's helped me be a better leader. Um, I have to be patient because again, I can think quick sometimes, and I have to give other
Mhm.
people a little bit time to come to their thoughts. And um, patience is something I
Mm.
have to I work on, and I realize that um, my mother would say, ever since I was a little girl, she said, Nelrae, you have a low tolerance for stupid people. You're gonna have a tough time in this world. I was like 5 at the time, but your mom's, and she says, you got to be patient. If someone, as soon as you figure out that person doesn't know it, you just move on, and you got to be patient. And
Wow.
so later on, she said, I probably should have said stupid people. You have a low tolerance for people when it takes them time to gather their thoughts. And so patience is something I've learned that is very important in being a leader. You got to be patient. You got to make sure voices are heard. But I also realize you also have to be decisive. I mean, for
Mhm.
me, I want to, if someone's leading me, I want you to be able to make that decision, gather the information, and then turn it around. So
Right.
I don't want someone that's taking forever to make the decision, but
Mhm.
at least make sure they've been heard. And the decision may still be the decision, but I want to make sure, yeah, I did hear you, but we're going to have to do this because of X, Y, Z. So.
Okay. Okay. Well, tell me about your transition out of sports.
So believe it or not, at Georgia Tech, so I was electrical engineer major for 3 years, and there was a Professor Adler you may be familiar with.
I remember him.
I took during the summer, I just took some electives over in the business school for an easy A, what I thought, boost up my GPA. And I had one of my classes with Professor Adler. I think it was called Integrated Management Solutions or something like that. But I
Mm.
know part of the textbook was the Wall Street Journal, and you had to put together a stock portfolio.
Okay.
You had to pick it up based upon goals, and it tracked it for like the 8 or 9 weeks for the quarters, because we were on quarter systems at the time. And
Right.
you had to present it, and it wasn't just about growth, but you had to present it, you had to explain why, dividends, and all the things. And I just fell in love with that. I thought it was really
Mm.
amazing. And then there was another class, and Professor Eller, he had me talk to him after class, and he said something to the fact that he didn't see me on the rolls in the business school. And I said, oh, I'm at the electrical engineering school. And he said, why are you at the electrical engineering school? And I was like, I thought it was because I was a girl. I was like, you think because I'm a girl? He was like, what? That's stupid. Close the door. And so I walked out and closed the door. And he's like, come in and close the door. I was like, and he was like the age of my dad, I think. So I'm used to like that yelling and stuff. And I'm like, why are you yelling at me? And so he asked me why. He goes, why are you an electrical engineering major? It has nothing to do with your intellect. Why are you actually your personality?
Mm.
And my response was, well, my dad said I was good at math and science, so I have to be an engineer. And I think he said something like, do you do everything your dad says? And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah, I do. So he wrote down 3 courses, and I think one was statistics or something like that. And he says,
Mm.
I think you should take these 3 courses before you, and I was 19 going on 20, because I was
Okay.
17 when I got to college. So,
Okay.
but I was in my junior year, and I remember thinking, I got to graduate, or I've got to do these things. And I thought my life was passing by. And I think I was about to turn 20, and I felt like I was already old, which was crazy. And he's telling me, change your major. And I said, oh, I can't change my major. That's going to I'll take an extra year. And he was like, Georgia Tech, you'll be okay. um, and that was some of the best advice, because that was the first time I had to make a decision on my own. I
Mm.
enjoyed the classes, but again, assuming if I can do it, everyone can do it. I just thought, oh, it's easy because I can do it. Not, oh, this is really what I'm suited for. And so it was
Right.
yet another person coming in my life saying, hey, you need to look at this a little differently.
Mhm.
So the biggest challenge was calling my dad, saying, Dad, I'm going to change my major. And he was like, what are you going to do with that major? And I think I said, well, I'm thinking about going into banking and finance. And he said something about, we don't think much of bankers or something like that. And I was like,
Mm.
what mom went to law school. Nobody likes lawyers, like,
Right.
So that was like my first, like, I'm gonna figure out my own,
Mm.
stepping out. So I took the extra courses. I liked it, and I did. I ended up changing my major, and my I remember interviewing with the Federal Reserve banks and all these different institutions,
Mm.
and I really wanted to get in banking. And I was excited about the investment piece, but I wasn't sure if I was ready yet. And so
Mhm.
um, when I graduated, I had an opportunity. Being an All-American, I had an opportunity to run professionally. And so I remember calling my parents, trying to ask them. I said, "Hey, I have this opportunity to run professionally and go overseas." I think I had a contract with Reebok. It wasn't a whole lot, but it was like, I thought it was a big deal. I remember telling him, "Dad, I think I can be really good. I might even make it to the Olympics. And this is a step I need to take." You get agents and all these things I'm not even familiar with.
Right.
And I thought my dad was going to say, "Take the job." He was like, "We don't believe in regrets. If you're going to do it now.
Mm.
You have nothing to lose."
Mm.
He says, "What's the worst you're going to do? Fail? You just get up and keep moving. You're not married, you don't have kids. This is the time to." So I left after graduating and ran professionally for a couple of years. And it was,
Mhm.
again, learned a lot, things.
Lonely time.
Yeah, there were some interesting things. But I also think sometimes God protects babies and fools. And my
Yes.
journey was, it was my athletic ability, and my journey had ended in Spain. And
Mm.
when I came back, I remember saying, "Okay, I can keep going and try." At the time, because it was 95, so the
Mm.
next year was the Olympics. And I think a year before that, the not the Atlantic, excuse me, the Atlanta Journal Constitution, they were breaking ground on the Olympic Stadium. And
Right.
they had myself and I think Derek Mills, who's also an Olympian.
Mhm.
He has a gold medal as well. We were still, and they had us standing on top of the mound in this picture, and I had that picture in like an album. And I remember thinking, "Man, I won't make it there. I won't make it there." And so in 90, I ended my career a year before the Olympics. I was watching the Olympics at home with my family. And I just remember thinking, I was so
Mm.
happy because these were my friends winning the Olympics. Is in Atlanta, and I was so happy for them.
Mm.
But I thought, "God, I didn't finish it the way I wanted to, but
Mm.
it's time for me to move on." And that was difficult because you train so hard and you're planning for what you think is the moment,
Right.
but that wasn't, years later, I look back and I realized that wasn't my moment. But at the time I thought, I must have done something wrong. I didn't train hard enough. I didn't do what I needed to
Mm.
do.
Mm.
Um, and so the circle that I was training with, or people who wanted to train me, a lot of those folks were in the news years later, and there was other things that were going on. And so I think in some cases I was
Mm.
protected, and it was time for you now to shift and move on. But again,
Mm.
sometimes you don't know why a door is closing. You know that saying, "Oh, one closes, another one opens." But you're like, "Well, I spent all my time to do this. I didn't."
Right. Right.
That's now you're done. Now you have something else to do. And so I shifted to I started actually working for I think it was Georgia Pacific, because I was
Mhm.
working just to figure out what I needed to do next. And I was going to go to law school. I remember that. I think I was going to.
Mhm.
So I think I sat for the LSATs, and I was planning to do that. And I meet my husband, and I was getting ready to move back to Atlanta. And so that door stopped, and I stayed in Jacksonville.
Mm.
So married, 4 sons, from
Mhm.
28 to 18, or soon to be 28 to 18.
Okay.
And I'm a grandmother of three. I got three grandbabies.
Wow.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
my next life was here in Jacksonville. And so I remember realizing, so I come back, started, I had babies, and I wanted to really get back into banking. Um, and I interviewed with several local banks here, and I started with Bank of America. And I literally I was in a career that was doing well, and it wasn't something I wanted to do. It was with Georgia Pacific. It was I bought paper, or it wasn't
Okay.
anything that it didn't require a lot of thought for me. But
Right.
so I basically took a pay cut. I went to get back. And I said, I want to get back into this world that I wanted to get into that
Mm-hmm.
I kind of got veered off on. So my one son was young, and I had offers from 2 of the bigger banks. But the reason I went to at that time Bank of America is because they had a childcare facility that was top notch in the city, and you had to be an employee to get into it. So again, making decisions for my kid, and so I took the job, and that job paid less than the other one.
Okay.
But what's ironic, that company that I go to Bank of America, and I go into a role that's actually it wasn't in the role I am now. It was considered a banker. So,
Okay.
and it became a licensed banker, which simply meant that when people come into the branch, help them with their mortgages, their banking, all of those things. And if there is investment opportunity, because I was licensed, at that time it was called a Series 6, I would refer them to the financial advisor.
Okay.
And which was, great. And then I remember I did that for, I want to say about 9 months. And I remember sitting at the table with the advisor and realizing what the client needed, and talked to him and said, hey, I think they're ready to do this. And they nodded, they were. And afterwards, he said, you closed that business or something like that. And I remember looking at him like, yeah, why am I sitting on this side of the table?
Right.
So that was my next aha moment. I picked up the phone and I said, I would like to go into this program. And it was a program where it took licensed bankers, and it was called, I think, Pathways, but it was a way to transition into the financial advisor role.
Okay.
And it was elite because it wasn't salary; it was commission. So I was leaving what I would consider to be something cushy to go. I think I can do this. I think I can do this, and I think I can really make a difference.
Right.
And I remember as I was going into it, there was so much negativity because there wasn't a lot of people that looked like me. And there was a lot of folks telling me what I couldn't do, which was great because now I'm going to do it.
Right.
But I said to myself, worst case, I will at least figure out how to help my own family. At worst case, I will at least figure that out. But went into it head first and really loved what I did, but also understood the impact on taking care of clients and making sure that they understand the ins and outs of choices that they're making, whether it's
Right.
rolling over a 401k or estate planning, life insurance policy. Or, I find that a lot of people without the right knowledge will make a decision and take money out without understanding tax ramifications, and it's too late. They're just like, oh, just give me the money. Like, no, that's not the best way. Let's
Right.
sit down and explain to you how you can actually, it can be much more fortuitous for you to take this money over a period of time, and you will get more of it. But that takes time and explanation versus and empathy as well, because sometimes you're dealing with folks that are having a life change. Someone may have left or job loss. And so you have to also be empathetic and understand. So it's not just here's the numbers, but taking those numbers and relating it and how it can impact that person.
Right.
And that's what Professor Adler had said to me. He says, he goes, engineers can build something, but you can take what's built and you can connect with the person. And that's actually far more powerful. And so he was a great, fan of the business at Georgia Tech, but also the power of people. And so that's how, I got into that role, and I remember what Professor Adler said, and I enjoyed that. But, numbers make sense to me, and then I can kind of explain that and impact that to the person that they're, depending on what their life event is, because everyone's situation is different. And so I took a leap, and I went from zero to being multi-million-dollar producer in about, it was about a little bit less than 10 years, but it was just focusing on doing the right thing for clients and doing what you need to do. But it was less about being this big producer, but more satisfaction of really taking care of people. I really enjoyed that. And it was something I loved to do. And so my father always said, if you can find something you love to do and get paid for it, you'll never work a day in life. So for me,
right.
it was just passion. It wasn't about, oh, I want to be this big producer. I enjoy getting up every day and going to see folks and taking care of them. When I would get the call, I love being able to find the solution for them. And sometimes that solution is, you know what, you're on the right path. You're okay on there. And so
that's great.
that was kind of what the journey was.
That's great. That's great. I want to say first that shout out to Professor Adler
Yeah,
for showing an interest and
yeah,
then moving on that.
I know. I know
I
he's
think
changed a lot of people.
too many athletes, I think, we get clustered into these majors that have absolutely nothing to do with our interests.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I think is so important. It's one of my passions, is at least alerting young athletes of
Mhm.
all kinds to
Yeah.
understand that what you just said is so important. If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Well,
Yeah.
if you're not taking the time to figure out what it is you want to do,
Hmm.
then you will just follow the path like
Right.
sheep and end up in a business
And
that
you're
you
like,
don't
I
like.
hate this. Right.
Exactly. Even
It's-
I think I remember hearing someone say something about I'm a lawyer and I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up.
yeah. I
Because
got clients that are like, I have a client that's a lawyer and wants to be a chef.
right, right. And so there's a good thing. There's two sides of that coin. There's follow your passion and do what you love, and then there's also do what's going to pay the bills, because
Gotta
passion and
find a
love can't
balance.
eat
Yeah,
that.
you gotta
You got to
find a
find
balance.
that balance.
Um,
I'm gonna ask to go back a little bit. Um, when you transition out of sports, so there are different types of transitions out, and it sounds
yeah,
like you made the conscious decision to leave track.
yeah,
And of course, hindsight is 2020. And you had things that you could look back on and say, you know what, babies and fools, God was looking out for me. I
right.
needed to I needed to move on.
Yeah.
But during that moment, that time when you were in that space,
Hmm.
how did you take care of yourself when you were leaving
Um,
the sport?
one, it was difficult because I didn't have a lot of guidance.
Mhm.
Because a lot of folks don't understand. So you've got your family that loves you, but they're not in that situation. So
Right.
they're probably encouraging you to probably leave because they don't think you're happy. And then you have other individuals that are trying to get you to stay, but they're not understanding the toxicity that's happening
Right.
either. And so, I didn't have a lot of mentors during that time to really
Mm.
talk to, but I did have a few individuals that I respected, that I reached out to, that were just they were top of their game on there. But everyone's situation was different, and so some folks were amazing, but they had to win. There was no other choice. They
Mm.
they they had to take care of family. There was no backup plan,
Mhm.
and so a lot of what I was I was gathering from individuals that were struggling with it. Some of them, there was no other choice. It was like, this has to work because I don't have a backup plan.
Right.
Where I did have this degree, I was, intellectually had the ability to work.
Mhm.
Um, and I, interesting enough, if I could do it again, I would have stayed in Atlanta. I would have not left. So
Mm.
me going
Mm.
to Florida was probably the end of, because being in Atlanta and staying with my coach would have been the right thing to do
Okay.
um, on there. And then, I think back like, oh, maybe I would have done that. But then there's all these other things that would not have happened
Right.
um, on there. But I had to. I mean, there were things like I had to make decisions about. I mean, I had folks telling me, here, take this, here, take this. And if you were, that one person said to me, well, the problem with you is that you're too smart. If you were dumb it down, you could win. And
Mm.
I thought, that's not gonna happen. I'm not, because I ask questions. I'm like, what is that? What is the?
Right.
And so I did not, you know, I was no longer in a safe place on campus. I was
Right.
now with individuals that I knew, but I didn't really know. And
Right.
so I had, and I was young too. I mean, I was not, I was, 21 years old,
Mhm.
22. And I went from mom and dad's house to college to this. I didn't, I
Yeah.
didn't, I didn't have any street wise. I wasn't stupid, but I wasn't that clever either.
Right.
I didn't have a lot of, I had people that were looking
Didn't have a
out.
lot of exposure to that
Right.
type of
I
world.
wasn't, my biggest thing is someone's mad at me because, uh, I left her or took her shoes or something like that. Tasha's like, "Can you wear my shoes?" Yeah, I thought you told me I could wear on there. So I had to grow up. I had to be conscientious, where before I could just, la-di-da, because I was someone always looking out for me. And it didn't feel safe anymore. And I can't really describe why, because there's a lot of folks that it's been great for, but I look back at some of the athletes that are my age that have accomplished a lot, particularly a lot of the females, and their situations are much different. And I think Georgia Tech, at least when we were there, it was kind of a special thing. We had each other's back. It wasn't a safe place. And I took that for granted, that we weren't just athletes, but we were students first. So there was a lot of intellectual conversations that we would have that weren't about, hey, throwing the ball or running fast. And I wasn't getting a lot of that out there when I was running, so to speak. Matter of fact, I remember getting mocked by my name. There was one athlete that mocked my name, and it's pronounced Bacha, and I explained to her the history of it, and she said something stupid like running for another country or something like that, and just really mean spirited. I remember just like, you're just not nice. And then later on, that same person got busted for drugs. They were so you're in a situation where you're alone. You don't have your girls. You're trying to do something. It's not fun any longer, and it's for me, it was hard for me to stay focused. And so I for a long time, and it was not immediate, but for a long time, I want to say for at least 5 or 6 years, I kept thinking I shouldn't have quit. I should have, maybe I made a mistake, even though it was in the back of my mind. And it was, I had my second son, and I remember I was nursing him, and I got a call about this Balco scandal and these different things that were going on. And I got validation that, oh yeah, you were good enough. You would have perhaps made it if certain things. And I wasn't able to verify all of that, but I was like, I just remember feeling happy. I was like, oh, good. I was good enough. That's cool.
Right.
Or, maybe I was competitive, but the ramifications of what it did to those that went in that different direction. I mean, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I feel horrible for a lot of, people were, they were so driven to make sure they could win gold that I think I had another friend. He said, he was a track athlete, and he said they just want it more than you. You just got, like, in other words, it's not bad or good. It's just they want it more. So they're going to do whatever they need to do to win. And I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. I guess you're right. But it was, you train for so long since, I started running, I was 14 and started taking it serious, in my junior year. But, you go through all these years, and now you're in your early 20s, and then it's over with. And for me, it wasn't even over with a win. It's just, it wasn't a big bang. It was, oh, you know what? Last year was your best year. Your last year was your best year. And now, this is over with. And you got to deal with that. And, my parents they're from old school. They were from different generations. So they're not around. They weren't about coddling you. They were like, suck it up. And you keep going. My mother would always say, something was really bad or a teacher was mean. She's like, okay, you get 1 hour to feel sorry for yourself. Go ahead, go waddle. And after that, we're going to move on. And if it was really bad, she goes, okay, you get the rest of the night. But tomorrow morning, we start focusing on solutions. And it was that type of tutelage from my mother that got me moving forward, because she would always say, and then what are you going to do? Keep moving that way. We get so hung up on the situation we don't know. We still got to keep moving forward. So it's the parents would say this all the time. It's not if, but life is going to be tough. But when you get to hell, it's not if, but when you got the ebbs and flows. You're in hell fighting for your life. You don't sit there and put up furniture and pictures and make nice. No, you get focused. You get in there and get the hell out of there. That's what you do. Right. So when that was going on, I had to kind of get my mind together, and I needed to refocus. And I was in an apartment, and I said, okay, now what? And I said, I got, let me get myself together. I don't know exactly what I want to do. So I
Right.
needed something to focus on. So I started studying for the LSATs. And
Right.
it was more sort of wanting to follow my parents' footsteps, but that wasn't a passion as much as it
Right.
was for my father. And so I kind of fell into it, and I shouldn't say fell into it. I remember saying to myself, you know what I enjoyed? I enjoyed finance. I want to get back to that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I thought I wanted to get back to was completely different. But
Okay.
the traditional banking versus the financial advisory role, and it happened to be you have to have a business mind to be in this role, because you're, kind of, you got
Right.
to do things yourself, and you got to be motivated,
Mm-hmm.
um, because you eat what you kill. So if you're not talking to someone, you're going to have to get up every day and make connections, and you got to do it for them, not for yourself. So you've got to make sure that you're planning properly, not only for them, but for yourself. You got to make
Right.
sure your budget's correct.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of those things actually help me get through those tough times, and staying active, staying, working out, drinking water, walking and moving.
Mm-hmm.
That helped me get through. I mean, one thing I love about being an athlete was I kept working out. I'm not running 10 300s or lift or squatting 300 anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not a foreign thing where I see a lot of people who weren't athletes, they have a difficult time on there. But
Right.
that for me is my drug of choice, getting a good sweat in.
Yes.
So if I
Yeah.
can sweat for 30, 45 minutes, I'm good. My kids know I get frustrated if I do a workout. I'm like, I was on the bike. I only got 10 miles. I was supposed to get like 13 miles today. I suck. So they're like, okay, Mom. All right. So that's what helped me. It was just having a routine.
Mm-hmm.
I think the military says, get up and make your bed or something, you accomplish that. But
Yes.
some of that's real. Just
That's right.
making sure you know what you wanted to do. And I write in journals, goals
Mm-hmm.
that I want to accomplish. And then I put the goal, and then I break that goal down to what do I need to do today. So
Right.
if it's a numerical goal, I need to do X, Y, Z in production. I need to talk to this many people. But what do you need to do today? I need to pick up a phone and I need to have a conversation with them.
Right.
Oh, I can do
Right.
that. Oh, I can do that.
Right. Right.
Versus this big. So, kind of, how do you eat a whale? One bite at a
One
time.
bite at a time. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what kind of, helped me.
I'll say it all the time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But I like the whale.
Yeah.
That's a bigger animal.
Right. You just one bite at a time,
Mhm.
and make sure you keep positive people around you. I cannot stress that. You got to get rid of those toxic people, and
Mm.
trimming that constantly, because unfortunately not everybody is, I had to learn the hard way. Not everybody really is looking for you to succeed.
Or
So they will
wanting
keep
you
you
to.
in
Yep.
that dark place, and they'll keep saying, "Oh, you shouldn't do that. You should do this." And so
Mm.
sometimes you have to really be selective in who you put in your circle. So I
That's
don't
right.
have a big circle. It's by that on purpose, simply because I've learned the hard way that not everybody is your friend, which,
That's right.
like
Unfortunately.
I'm just like, I come from a big family. Everybody likes each other. Like, no, I'm like, oh, really?
No, no, no.
So,
There's this documentary called The Price of Gold, and it was about I think it's Nancy Kerrigan
Okay,
and
yeah.
Tanya Harding.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And that whole nonsense that went on with them.
Yeah.
But the what why that came to mind was because of the sacrifices and
mhm,
poor decisions that some people make
Right.
to compete and win gold, right? And
Right.
so when I was doing my research for my PhD, one of the things that came up was how guys who actually did make it to the NFL were
Right.
ended up worse off. But go ahead, I'm listening.
No, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know some of them as well.
Mhm,
I think it's, I don't have a PhD, but my observation,
mhm,
I think, is what's your values. And
mm, mm.
like I said, sports started because it was socialization, but hey, I'm really
Right, right.
competitive. I love winning just like anybody else. And my girls on the team, we had like-minded. We could be upset with each other, but we came together to win that, to win the championship. We're going to come together for that.
Right.
But it was about working hard in practice, like you're putting it in. And so there was no question about when that gun went off, what we did to get there. There was not a question about whether or not we deserved it. Those were things I took for granted, where, when we're in the moment, you see these athletes, I think we all do, and we're like, oh my God, you're so amazing, whether, we can pick a sport. And then years later, you find out all these really bad things that happen. And, some folks are like, oh, they cheated. But I always say, I feel bad for them because one, you don't know what that stuff is doing to your body.
Right.
I know in football, my biggest concern for my sons were about head injuries. I wasn't,
Right.
I love to watch the sport, but I wasn't a big fan of the trauma that would happen. And I know that, oh my gosh, you can see his face and I can't, but he was in the NFL and did a big thing. Oh gosh, I don't know if I should say his name, but I can see his face. But did a lot of history about the head injuries, which was concussions. And there's other athletes that had the same thing, but also the ramifications of mental and how it affects you as you go on in life. And, the brain is such a sensitive thing that it could change literally your personality. It can make someone that's very
Absolutely.
soft-spoken and easygoing to such an angry, aggressive person. And people don't know why. And it could be because of an injury that happened 10 years ago
Right.
on there. There was big Balco scandal and all these things in track and field. And the same thing, I always said, you don't know what that's doing to you. And so you have individuals that are in the peak of health having heart attacks. And they'll say, oh, it's because of this. And I'm like, that's hard to digest. You think of, so to me, even early on, I was raised with these values that, first of all, my dad was a basketball player, but he was about intellect and what he could do. So I wasn't raised with, oh, you better bounce that ball or run really fast. And
Right.
this is what, I wasn't judged by my accomplishments on the track and field. For me to make my dad proud, it was about, where's your grades today? What did
Yeah.
you do today? And he
Yeah.
would always say, student first, Nelrae. And he was proud of me on the track and field. But what he was preparing me for was the fact that others would judge you just, you're not a dumb job. They're going to put you into this square and you're supposed to fit into it, where you're smart and you want to be a doctor, and they're going to tell you, oh, you don't want to take those hard courses. That conflicts with football practice or track practice. Take these courses,
Right.
which means you're not looking out for that person. You're not actually taking consideration what that person can do. And that person is still young and they're like, okay, coach, I'm going to do that. But what that coach did was just detour someone that would have been a great doctor or a lawyer into, hey, I can throw a football, which is short-lived. Or
That's
I can
right.
run. This is not going to be a long-term thing because we get older, and you're at 50, even in best shape, that 25-year-old is still going to be in better shape just because of the recovery time. And so it's not there. What I notice is that they're not given the correct information, and a lot of it comes down to education and exposure. Mom and dads that may not know, and we've all seen the parent that has the athletic child that makes it to the NFL or anything, but the story gets so tragic after that because there's no guidance. I mean, I know now it's about this NIL and the money, and I thought, oh, this is a good thing, but the problem is there's no education going along with it. And so these
Yeah.
kids are getting, they're doing it in college, and after college as well, and professional, but now they're even younger. And not only do they not have the knowledge, their parents don't have the knowledge. And so that money, and I always try to stress to people, it's not how much money you make, it's how much you save and how you
Right.
save. And I've got individuals that are retired and they are living better than when they were working because they saved in the proper way on there. And, we're in the time now that, Facebook, and these things weren't around when you and I were in school. God knows.
Right.
I tell my nieces and my nephews and my kids, I'm like, I don't know how y'all keep up. That it's exhausting, but we're in the immediate now, and I think athletics is about now. And you're so, whatever the sport is. I mean, you think about Tanya Harding's and Nancy Kerrigan's. It was all about unfairness. I think Tanya Harding was kind of like the underdog, and I mean, it was all craziness, but there was other people that were perpetuating on these two women.
That's a fact.
And it comes to an injury, and you think about, I mean, in track and field, people went to jail. I mean, there was an athlete that went to jail. Her entire life has been uprooted.
That's
And
right.
yes, she took these particular drugs, but none of the people that gave them to her went to jail. And so she's being ostracized, which I think is completely unfair. I think she was still an amazing athlete. So maybe she wouldn't have won 10 gold. She still would have probably won 4.
Right.
But
are we not saying her name intentionally? Because I want to say her name, but okay, all right, I won't say it.
I don't have rights to her story. I mean, but
you're right. You're right.
It's unfair, and I think about what she had to endure. I don't know her whole story, but I'm like, damn, it was just,
it's so common though. Unfortunately, it's you think about how athletes are only athletes for a short period of time, and let's just say college, okay, 4 years, top 5 if you're redshirted. And you're surrounded by people who are telling you that they are there for your best interest. They're telling your parents that, but really and truly, when it gets down to the bottom line, they are there to further their causes. And unfortunately, that doesn't always include yours. And I think about the fact, Nelrae, that you are a 9-time All-ACC performer.
Yeah.
You are a 6-time All-American. Yeah. And a world medalist, right?
Right.
And despite all of that you've accomplished, there are people who don't accomplish those types of things, right? And they run track and they're in sports, and they still struggle with the loss of identity when they are no longer playing. And for you to have made that type of impact in your athletic world, I know that was difficult, um, walking away from that. And what I'm trying to bring this to, the point I'm trying to make is these athletes now, you mentioned NIL. There was already a lot of loss that athletes experience when they transition out of sport, whether they retire, whether they are, whether they get too old, whether they get injured or they just aren't selected. There is a tremendous amount of loss from the social aspect, like you mentioned, no longer being around your friends and girls who were, you guys and girls who were like family, who had your back. You miss that locker room, and then you also miss. There's a financial aspect to it, because now instead of having tuition paid, food taken care of, your free gym membership,
I got baby though.
well, and then and then your room and board. My junior and senior year, they were building the Olympic Village basically, so I got to live in the Olympic dorms before the Olympians did. The football players did, right? And so now with this NIL, you have high school players getting it, and you have college players getting it. So now, in addition to losing all of those other things, now they're losing this paycheck of the NIL. And so I love what you just said about it's not what you make, but what you save. Would you care to share some more about that, and maybe some guidance that you would give uh, college players now who are getting some money, and what they should probably consider to give them a chance to maybe say, hey, the NFL is an option and not I have to play?
I think the first thing is you've got to save. And so a couple of things. One, and I know they all get different, but they need to think about this as if this needs to be lasting for the rest of my life. A lot of
Mm,
people live in the now. And
mhm.
so you're getting a large amount of income and assets that some people work a lifetime and don't even accomplish.
Right.
And so when I say it's more about how much you save. If you get $1 million, but you spend 1.5, you're bankrupt.
Yes.
And these kids are getting this in high school and in college. They don't have any of the background, and they haven't even passed statistics and accounting yet on there, let alone lived outside of the realm of this little
Right.
world. They have to know that this is temporary. The biggest concern I have, particularly for these high school kids, is who's around them, and that's the thing that concerns me. So if the parents, assuming the parents love their kids, I'm sure they do, they have to take interest in where that money's going. Simple things like who's writing the checks, managers and blah blah blah. People steal. You have to have accountability. There should be at least two separate accounts. One that is long term, that's
Mhm.
sitting down and really thinking about, okay, what do I need over my lifetime? If this is all the money I'm going to get, how much would I need? And let's just say you're getting $1 million. You should be
Mhm.
saving at least half of that. That's a $500,000. And a 17-year-old spending $500,000 is insane. That's absolutely insane. But what I would first say is don't change your lifestyle. Don't change your lifestyle. It's like
Right.
when you get a raise in work, I tell my clients, increase your 401k contribution. Um,
Mhm.
Save more actually than spending more. And it's a
Mhm.
concept that a lot of people don't talk about. So they're like, okay, I got more money and I'm gonna go get that bigger house. Why? Do you need the bigger house?
Right.
Um, I'm gonna get this big house. A friend of mine that had a 10,000 square foot home, 6 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms. It was amazing, beautiful.
Mhm.
It was just him and his wife. I was like, are y'all gonna have more? I mean, there was no kids, and not that there was anything wrong with that, but they didn't account for the fact that they had to heat and air and the home association dues.
Furnish.
Um,
Mhm.
and then this was way back during I call it the Great Depression too, during 2007, 2009, when the market
Oh,
really
yes.
um, went through a correction, and that was led by the mortgage crisis, by the way.
Right.
And folks, the jobs were changing, and they ended up having to file bankruptcy.
Mm.
And they moved into the house that they should have moved in, which was a 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, in a nice neighborhood. But
Mhm.
they ended up living where they were supposed to live to begin with. And this house that they were living in this neighborhood, and they were doing it for the zip code and the access, and I don't even know what they were accessing, but in their mind, this is where the people that are successful live. And I'm like, you sound like
Mm.
a fool. So and what a lot of people think is successful with the bling bling, I said the average millionaire actually wears khaki pants, drives a Toyota, and shops at Costco. They're, I mean, they're not walking around with the bling bling. They're looking for the
Right.
discounts. They're and I'm not telling people that's the way they're supposed to live,
Mhm.
but what I want them to understand is be smart with your money. Because one thing you can understand in marketing, everyone, when you get that money, marketing is all about how to get that money out of your pocket,
Yes.
how to get it out of your pocket. So before you are susceptible to that, and you're already behind the curve as soon as you walk into the mall, as soon as you walk into the grocery store, they
Mm.
they know exactly what you want. Now we have this phone that you speak something and boom, the advertisement's right there. AI,
Yes.
great, and it's also a little scary. So the world is constantly trying to get you to spend, and you need this, you need that, and you need to. When I was younger, I would say, don't have your debit card linked to your main account.
Okay.
That's where all the money goes. So my debit card is linked to an account that has no more than like $500, $600 in it.
Okay.
And the
Mhm.
reason is that if I'm wanting something more than that, it used to require me that I'd have to go to the bank. Now it's just, you log on and you do a transfer.
Right. Right.
That simple pause will allow you to think a little bit. You're like,
Yes.
I got 10 pair of black shoes, and no, I don't really need that. Like it's just, you're like, oh, I gotta have that. Oh, those are, and then it's like,
Mm.
no, I don't really.
Impulsive purchases.
Yes. And
Mhm.
they've made it even easier. It used to be, hey, put your debit and credit cards away. But now you don't need it. You got Apple Pay. you got this. I remember when my kids were in teenagers and I had an account for them, and I would take it would start when you're 15. You can open up a bank account with a teen and
Okay.
mom or dad on there,
Mhm.
and for them to learn how to budget. And 9 times out of 10, the first month they're gonna not do it right. So I take the debit card from them.
Okay.
Well, first two that worked marvelously, but the
Mhm.
last two, it's called Apple Pay. They have already logged in the debit card to their
Oh,
phone. I'm like,
goodness.
I'm still using, they're like, oh, we were in
Mm.
I was working in New York, I think it was last year, and
Mhm.
I was going to be there for a week. It was spring break, so I took my two younger boys up, and my other son said, "I'm going to come up too." And so we had a week in New York, and they wanted to go to every borough. And I'm not from New York, but we really had a good time riding the trains.
Right.
And I don't know if I left my wallet or something, and my sons were just doop, doop, and I was like, what? And I work for a bank, and I'm like an old lady. I'm like, "What are you doing?" They're like, "Mom, and I'm like, see, that's how they get you. It's too easy.
It's too easy.
But it's harder and harder every day for you to kind of separate your emotions from getting money out of the wallet. So you have to be purposeful. It's like when I want to do something, I have to be very thoughtful. So I love to hang out with my girlfriends. I love to chit chat. But when I knew I had it steady, y'all didn't see me. I'd go to the library, and
Mm.
I'm not hanging out with my girls. I'm trying to find the smartest person in that classroom so that I can be ready for that test. And I'm
Right.
sitting in that I forget where up on the Skiles building, where the library was.
Mhm.
And I did what I needed to do because it was
Right.
like I cannot flunk out. My daddy does not play. So it had to be. I learned that my freshman year. I was like, okay,
Mm.
I got to get my mind right and do what I need to do. And I kept that same mindset every time, I transition. It seems like every 5 or 6 years, there's a new transition. And to get there, like you said, when you're doing something that's exciting, it's going to be hard. It's that transition. And that's when you got to focus and be mindful what you're doing.
Right.
Then you get to the plateau and then you're enjoying yourself. And then there's another step, but that's what progression looks like.
Mhm.
Um, on there. And so for these young kids, the first thing is, hopefully they've got good people around them. But it's not just the young kids, it's the parents to be very mindful because this money is not going to be forever. It's going to be
Right.
short-lived. If you're lucky, you may get 3 years. If you're, I think the NFL, the um, average, I think it's what, 3 years or something like that. If
3.3
you
years.
make the NFL, and I think they ran a percentage, it's like 3.3 years, and I think 1 or 2% make it there. And so, and then if you are lucky, sometimes you're spending all that money on your healthcare, which I think is it's still kind of not cool. But you get to see the big guys, the Deion Sanders of the world, and things like that. But not everybody's
Mhm.
going to be like that. So
That's right.
um, make sure you're saving. And some of the athletes that I've helped, they weren't these top round draft picks, but they are living a better life than some of these top round because they saved. They didn't buy the big house. They bought
Mhm.
what they could afford. They took care. They put money away for their kids' education. They saved, and so now they are retired and they're living very comfortably because they knew. As I said to them, this could be it, and they took heed to that, and so now that money that they put away is working for them, and they're in a situation where they're able to do a lot more now,
Mhm.
20 years later than they were at the time. And they're doing
Right.
better than some of those big name individuals because they
Right.
weren't doing it. And so,
What they saved. I really hope that the athletes that are watching this, because I have a few athletes that I
yeah.
work with as clients for counseling, and I have some athletes that are guys that went to the same high school that I went to, and I've already told them about this episode, and
Okay.
I'm looking forward to them watching it and then asking questions because there is so much that we don't know.
Right.
And one of the problems when you're a young person these days,
Mm.
you mentioned the social media. Comparison is a thief of joy. And there was always this thing about keeping up with the Joneses.
Oh,
And the
yes.
Joneses were right next door to you or across the street. But now with social media, the
Mhm.
Joneses can be anywhere in the world. And the reality of it is the Joneses oftentimes are lying about what they have and what they're
Joneses are
doing.
broke, ladies and gentlemen, they're
The
broke.
Joneses are broke.
Broke. They're dysfunctional. They're
Yes.
lying. Anybody like, oh, I've never argued ever with my spouse. Lies. That's a lie.
Lies, lies.
It's not,
Yeah.
it,
So I'm hoping that
it's
these guys and women, I'm hoping that these young men and women will take advantage of this opportunity and
right.
store and save more of what they get
Yes.
for the
Yes.
long term. And one of the biggest, I think, myths that we tell ourselves is that if it's going good today, it's going to be going good tomorrow. It's not true.
Yeah. It's, preparation is important. It's like those fables, the grasshopper and the ant.
Mm,
Preparation, because and you prepare when it's good, so that there's going to be a bad day, and if we're wrong, great, that's
right,
great.
right.
Just in case, it's always just in case
Mm-hmm,
we can get through that. So for me, I wanted to be a teacher, to be honest with you. I thought I love kids, I wanted to teach.
mm-hmm.
And then I was like, I don't think I can afford to be a teacher right now. So I'm going to have to find something else to do. But in my mind, I save and I say, well, my backup plan is I can go be a teacher. So I'm going to make sure I have enough in there to help supplement that. Because
Yes.
I love kids and I could always go and get a degree into that. And so, it was until I was 50 years old that I got a really fancy name bag, because I would go visit the store and I'm like, I mean, just because I can, don't mean I should. And
Uh-huh.
I'd go back, and then finally, I just finally was like, all right, I'm going to do it.
Well, good for
But
you.
make sure all my bills were paid. And I felt guilty. I was like, I don't have a mortgage. I think it's, the man was like, we don't care, Miss Ellie. But now I've got nieces and nephews and young kids that I mentor, and they're like, oh,
Mhm.
that's a nice bag. And I stop and say, listen,
Mm.
that's a pure want. That is not a need. That I wasn't sitting at the bus stop. And there's anything wrong with that. But when I had 2 nickels, that wasn't anywhere close to my mind.
Let's talk, just a, quick little something
Yes.
on athletes building long-term wealth, college athletes
Hmm.
building long-term wealth or kicking off their journey to long-term wealth by
Mhm.
applying their NIL, even if it's not a huge amount.
Yeah. So, two things. Comparing to the real world, usually when a client's starting out, I say try to save at least 20% because, they got to make their
Okay.
income, they got to pay their housing. College athletes don't have a lot of expenses. So, I'm kind of
Right.
going to reverse that and say you need to save about 80% of that, at least
Yes.
50.
Yes.
You don't have any expenses. So, save about 80, 20, do what you want to do. I do believe in joy factor and, having a little bit, but you don't need all that money right now. You should be socking it away. It's the equivalent. I mean, for you and I living in our parents' basement and working like we are now, imagine how much we could save with no
Oh.
mortgage, no no expenses. So I would say for college athletes, high school, um, you're on full scholarship, you should be saving at least 80%, minimum 50%. But I think that's too low. You do not need all that money, and 20%
Mhm.
of that is more than enough for you to find joy um, on there and be purposeful. Because if you're smart, you're looking at it over the long term. You
Mhm.
can put yourself in a situation where you can truly choose your destiny when you get done with
Mm.
sports. You
Right.
can really choose what you want to do, whether, where you want to live, how you want to live. If you have philanthropic or desires to help, I mean, this is what the decisions you make now will have rippling ramifications for
Mm.
your future as well as your family's future. So for anyone that's desiring to have children, this is a big deal. So I'm pretty adamant, at least 50 to 80% of that should be saved. You don't
Yes.
have any expenses. And this is probably speaking as a mother more so than an advisor, but as an advisor, you should be socking it away because you don't know what the future completely holds. And so we all do the best we can. And sometimes things pop up, family members are sick or things of that nature. So if you're truly wanting to help your family, help the people around you, put that money away because right now you don't need it. So, how many, I don't know what they're buying today, but you only need one of anything. I
Right.
don't understand when the folks that win the lottery and they're broke in 3 years. It's because they bought everybody a car and a house, except they
Mhm.
didn't plan that they had to pay for it. So,
Mhm.
be practical, and be purposeful in what you're wanting. And, you should be having that you should be writing a log and talking about what your dreams are. And be very selective on who you tell those dreams to, because you want folks to help you be accountable, not
Right.
distract you. So
Right.
um,
Right.
discernment, I think, is the word of the day.
Indeed, indeed. And I will say, for the parents and friends and family members of these athletes who are getting these NIL deals and
Yeah.
these monies, don't be selfish.
Oh,
Encourage those children, and
yes.
because they are children. I know they're gonna be like, I'm a grown man, I'm 21.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah. We thought we were too at
Yeah.
that
Oh my
age,
gosh.
right?
Sorry, mom and dad. So sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But
So much we don't know.
so
And
much we don't know. But those of us who are older, who do
mhm,
know, let that young person put that 50 to 80% away, and you keep doing what you do, and don't
right.
stress them out by
Right.
trying to get them to buy you cars and things like that.
Well,
It's yeah, they need to hear this too. They need to
yeah.
be assisting and supporting the athletes
Right.
and saving their money and putting it away for later.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It needs to do that. I think the word people say is, "Oh, I deserve. I deserve." You deserve a
Mm,
Mercedes. No one deserves a Mercedes. No one needs a
mm,
Mercedes. What you deserve is longevity and quality of life.
right.
And that's important. So your health, your mind, and making sure that you have those two together, because wealth and health go hand in hand. I mean,
Mm,
we got family and friends and folks that we love, and sometimes they're not doing everything right in regards to their health. Doesn't matter how much money they have. You start to understand, if you're not doing the right things,
mhm.
that can shorten the life. So we're all focusing or
Absolutely.
wanting longevity, which means these dollars that you have today need to spread over your lifetime. The earlier you start, the better.
Mhm.
But right now is a great time to socking all of that away.
Yes.
And do your own research. Start to invest in your mental to find out mentally to find out what you need to do with that money. There's a lot of different things out there, obviously on the internet, but making sure, sitting down, finding an institution that you can trust and having a conversation, and doing some of your own due diligence, and then finding someone that you can trust to guide you on that path, and make sure that that advice is objective and not focused on how much they're making, but what they can do for you. And so
That's right.
there's a lot of avenues we could go into that, but in general,
Indeed.
they need to be saving. Investing is important, and there's a difference between saving and investing as well. So
Mhm.
saving is CD, money market investments, or the stocks, bonds, and different things like that. And so right now you're in school, you got courses you could take to get some more information, but
Yes.
I don't know. They need to teach financial literacy in middle school. They really should start teaching that. But I am shocked on how many people just don't understand the basics of saving. So um,
Mhm.
if they're wanting to be the big man or the big woman, it's not what you're doing at 20, man. You got to save that, because so many of us have looked back and like, oh, if I had done this,
Right.
that $5 on a coffee or whatever could
Mm.
be more like, 10,000 over a longer period of time, depending on how you're.
Yes.
You're just putting that aside, and investing is boring. It's not sexy. It's not,
Mhm.
and that's the thing. But I always say boring gets you there. Like boring
Right.
gets you there. You don't have to. I see so many people bling bling and big this and big that, and they're broke. And so the
Mm.
Joneses, don't try to keep up with them. They're broke. They're broke. They play a good game, and now with Facebook and all these other things that you have, people love to tell you everything they have. They're
Yeah.
broke.
They're broke.
You see it, or they're miserable, or so purpose on
Mm.
what you want, how you want to live. If you are only on the price tag, then you put a price on yourself, and the problem is now
Mm.
you're negotiating. You're negotiating your value when you don't even know your own value, right?
Right.
You gotta know your value before you walk into that door. So
Right.
and sometimes that value may be, you know what? I'm not taking what you just handed to me. My dad would always say, you're going to get very close. And at that moment, that's when someone's going to slide in there. You got to know your value, because they're going to make you choose. And if
Yeah.
you don't know, you may do something that you don't want to do, and make decisions that you're not prepared for. So you have to be prepared on what that number is. And sometimes it could be, in my case, I guess I'm going to have to end it here and I'll have to find a different road. So I
Right.
want them I want them to know what they want, and it takes time. What I wanted at 20 is completely different at 30, and at 30 at 40. But invest in yourself, be purposeful, ask questions. And if it doesn't make sense, make it make sense. Go do some research. So because the
Yes.
more information you have, the better you are on there. So
Get
you're
second and
curious.
third, even fourth opinions.
Yeah, be
Informed
curious.
opinions.
Yes, informed. And with the internet, there's so much information you can check and recheck. And so when someone's telling you they're doing such and such, go look them up. You should
Right.
look them up. You should be able to find them. If you Google me, I mean, unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but the reality is that we're in the line of work that we are. We're open books, so
Yes.
you can pull up anything, and so you should be able to find that person, legitimize them. There's a lot of people that say they're one thing and they're not.
Yeah.
It's frustrating because, and I will call them out on it if I see them in a room. I'm like, you are not licensed. You have not done this. You're not. And
Mm,
so you've got to, be thoughtful and make sure someone is investing in you. It should be someone that's
that's right.
tied to it should be tied to your growth, not to their pocketbook. So
That's
that's
right.
what I would tell them. Just, and to the parents, you got to be thoughtful. It's not, I'm a mother, so we want our kids to be better than us. It's not
Mhm.
what we deserve. It's their job is to do for my grandchildren what I did for them. I'm paying the debt that my parents did for me to my kids. So
That's right.
it's about paying it forward. So
That's right.
that's just my advice. Everyone's done it, but I was lucky that I had two people, my mom and dad, that woke up every day just loving us, and they were
Mm.
strict. They didn't give us everything.
Mhm.
We didn't have a trust fund or anything like that. My dad said, "I
Mhm.
taught you how to catch a fish, so you'll never starve,"
Mm.
and that's what you need. And so, you know, know
Yes.
your value. I don't, and I know when you're in the middle of it, a lot of folks are just like, I gotta win, but what are you getting? And so
Mhm.
sometimes the gold is not enough, and
Right.
or be careful what you wish for,
How
in
about
some
that?
cases. So it helped me build character. It gave me a voice in some cases, but I also got to understand myself. And so being in athletics and pushing myself, it helped me believe in myself a lot more. But when I got out there in the real world, it wasn't as tough to transition. It was me understanding what my purpose was. So that may be, we all have to sit down and being able to understand, okay, what is it that I want to do, and when to walk away sometimes. And I don't know,
Yes.
that can be challenging. We can, you think about, Muhammad Ali. The stories are that, he took the last punch, and I don't know if it was, oh, I know someone's going to tell me I'm misquoting, but whoever he fought, he literally stopped and told him, don't fight again. And
Mm.
that last punch just, you know, Parkinson's and all those things went on. And it's like, what if you didn't get in that ring? What would have happened then?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
I
so,
I think about something you said earlier about when you're done with sports and doing the right thing with your money and your financial opportunities now. You can choose to be done with sports
mhm.
before sports is done with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, these kids have got way more opportunities than we had. And, if you're doing it right, that $1 million contract over here that you don't necessarily need it. I mean, they can make money in some cases. I know everyone doesn't have that just by their name alone doing other things. So
Mhm.
make sure, like I said, it's not how much you make, it's how much you save. You got
How much you
actors,
save.
athletes, so many of them broke. And it's just like, how did you get 50 million and now you don't have $5?
Mm.
Because they didn't, I mean,
They didn't
Ugh,
save.
they didn't
Yeah.
save. They didn't, and they
Yeah.
did not have the right people around them. And people are always like, "Oh, this is, I guess, what on fire or hot and everything like that." They don't know what they're talking about, and they're
That's right.
they're putting on a facade. So
Mhm.
taking. I mean, there was an actress that divorced her husband, and she had not a dime to her name, and her children, who she loved very dearly, and she was in an apartment, and needed like dental work. I was just like,
Mm.
how did this happen? And she's made it back in there. I was just like, this is so sad. Like, so this is not just athletes. This is on every level. And so
It
financial planning
is.
should not be a mystery. People should be able to, I think access is the concern I have. I think people should have access to it. be curious, and, make good decisions. So it's not just, it's not just getting that degree. It's understanding where you're wanting to go, not where you've been, if that
Right.
makes sense. So,
That makes plenty of
um,
sense.
and the next 10 years is going to look a lot different than the previous 10 years. And
You're going to look different. Yeah.
yeah, right. So hopefully,
So let me ask you, what personal loss have you experienced that has contributed to you finding purpose?
loss of people,
Mm.
my parents, which, believe it or not, their loss was a little less painful because they were married 50 years. They had a beautiful life. I was able to reconcile that. But, I've
Mhm.
lost teammates. I mean, folks that I've lost, and
Yeah.
we've lost, I should say.
Mhm.
And so time is something that's precious. And so I'm now at the place that if I'm going to spend time, it's got to matter. I want to spend time with people that care about me, that I
Mhm.
care about. I'm no longer allowing toxic people to exist in my circle.
Mm. Yes.
I used to allow it to exist. I don't allow it to exist anymore. Where 10 years ago I may have done that, and so I'm okay if you don't like me. I am
Right.
okay. I am not everybody's cup of tea, but I am a good person.
Mhm.
And I don't, unfortunately, there's a lot of in this world with the immediate attention and things
Mhm.
with the internet and social media, and there's a lot of meanness, and
Yes.
hate rots the core.
Mm.
Hate rots. So forgiveness is not for them, it's for you. And so I have been in a
Mhm.
place where I'm just like, you know what, I do forgive, not because I'm trying to help you. I got to let go of that, and I got to move on because there's too many people that love me and that I love to be focusing on that. So I'm more purposeful. My circle's really small, and I'm okay with that.
That's
I jokingly tell my kids, I'm like, man, I can never. I don't know how does folks get 1,000 likes. They're like,
right.
say something really bad, they're gonna like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, but it's when you lose someone that is your age
Mm.
and is so close to you, it's like that just to me, it shook me to my core. Lost a teammate,
Mhm.
years ago, way too young, in her 30s, which was devastating, with a little
Yeah.
boy, and he's doing great, which is
Mhm.
awesome, and so that hurt. And now 20 years later, losing another teammate, and
Mm.
watching them fight a good fight, and they live, which is good, but
Mhm.
man, I would have given anything for more time. And so
Mm.
last year,
Mm.
I lost a best friend and a sister-in-law who was more than a sister, and neither one of them will see their 55th birthday, and that
Wow.
that just hurt me. I thought that, so to me, I want to stop. I think you and I talked about this. I'm tired of us meeting up at funerals. I want us to
Right.
celebrate and be more purposeful and spend more time celebrating each other and accomplishments, and not waiting till we lose someone to go, oh man, we need to get together. So I want to be more purposeful in that. And so that, I think that's important. And just peace. My heaven is
Mm.
quiet, and just, I don't need a whole lot to be happy.
Mhm.
So I'm thankful and I'm grateful. And I feel like, that statement, that which is given much is expected. And so my goal now is to give to that next generation, to mentor. When you call, I'm going to be there, because I want to make sure these kids are at least getting this,
Right.
so that at least they can't say they didn't hear it.
Right.
It's like
What
with
they
my
do with
kids,
it is on them.
right? And like, I'm gonna pour into you, but if if you're,
Right.
I tell my kids, if you destined to go in that fire, at least I gave you everything you needed, on there. But I just want to make sure they, if I've got the knowledge, I want to give it to them. I want to
Yes.
make sure they have it. I don't want to hoard it. And so that my legacy is that, I gave as much as my parents did to me, I gave to the next generation.
Indeed.
On there. So that's kind of where I am. I don't know if we're getting old, Marlon, but it's just my people matter, and I think words matter. And
Mhm.
I was talking to someone the other day about the lack of empathy. They're
Mm.
they're very smart, but they lack human emotion. And I said, there's something not right about that. I don't
Mm,
know who hurt you. I don't know what, but you have to have empathy when you're dealing with people because
right.
people make mistakes. And so it's not, you focus sometimes on the mistake versus the intent. I was always
Hmm.
raised to look at the intent because sometimes the intent was not to hurt. It just happened to be that way. I may have hurt someone,
Right.
but it was never my intent. And so we have to be able to forgive and go, yeah, you're right, and keep moving versus harboring, stuck on stupid, stuck on silly,
Mhm.
on there. So I think that just comes with age and wisdom. And now I used to ask my mom, like, how do you know what you know? Like, why, because you live long enough, you live
Yes.
long enough. So
Yes.
I hope these kids have greater opportunity than we had, obviously. But also they got way more dangerous than we did. So they
There you
have to be
go.
alert. I was, you know, I was able to be an airhead and still be safe. They can't even afford to.
Mm,
I was surrounded by safety. I don't think they have that now. I mean, this world is
right.
moving really fast, but I mean, a lot of information, but not a lot of thoughtfulness. So every time I
Yeah.
remind folks to be thoughtful and be a little bit more patient. But these
Indeed.
kids, they are very blessed, but they need to understand it's not how much you make, it's how much you save. So one guy may get 2 million and spend it all, and you may only get 50, and you saved 40. You're still ahead of the game. So
You were ahead of the game.
be
Indeed.
thankful and
Indeed.
appreciative. Yeah,
That's right.
so the
Hmm.
competition, just compete with yourself. I compete with myself. I think about what I need to do and I put down my goals and then I hold myself accountable. And,
That's
and
right.
so when sports ends, keep some of those same focuses they were doing in sports into real life, on there. And, you know, they're gonna be okay.
Good stuff. Good
I
stuff.
hope that helped.
That helped a lot. I'm sure it's going to help many more in the future. But I have, um, before we go, you
Yes.
mentioned having quality people around you, removing toxic
Yes.
people, staying out of toxic spaces. And so,
Yeah.
I hope you don't mind what I'm about to do, but
Uh-oh.
I took the liberty of, I know you, but,
Yes, you do.
uh, and so, I know that you would come on here and be Nelrae, um, you would speak your truth.
Yeah.
But I need people to understand something, and I want you to
Yes.
understand this. All right.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a 9-time All-ACC performer, a 6-time All-American, and a world medalist who is now one of the top financial advisors in the country. And so a lot of people get caught up into those types of things, and you've done tremendous things as an athlete, and you're doing
Yeah.
tremendous things in the financial world. And I love what you're saying about taking care of people and caring for people. But I want you to hear a few things that uh, this is how you were described
Okay.
by some people I reached out to: strong,
Uh-oh.
prepared, committed to following the plan,
Uh-oh.
held everyone else accountable, consistent. That's what they remembered the most about you, that you were consistent.
Oh,
And
wow.
you can guess who said those. This next person
I
said
probably
that
could.
that you were tough as nails, never back down from a challenge. You wanted to be the best, never scared of a workout, always had a pep talk, and you were always there for your teammates, and you always find something good to say
Oh,
and to say to and about people who weren't that good. Like they're basically saying that
that's really,
even the bad apples, you were able to find something positive about them and always had a kind word for them. Um, they said that Nelrae always has your back, that you would give the shirt off your back, and that you will you will you will tell them about themselves in a way they wouldn't realize that they're being told about themselves until they think about it later. And so I said, oh, so she would slap you with the iron hand and a velvet glove, and they'd say, yes. Okay. And this is the last one. I said, Nelrae is extremely resilient and mentally one of the strongest people they know. Instead of fighting back physically or with words, she fought back on the track. They said that you were unshakable, very self-aware, confident.
Oh, wow.
And they said that people tried to attack you,
Oh, my God.
and it only made you hungrier on the track. And that they thought that you had a superiority complex, but what they didn't understand was that you just had a high standard. They said it was more about them being haters than you having a superiority complex. You had the will to win and succeed in everything that you did. You were very competitive, and you held yourself to the same standard that you held everyone else to. You never let outside noise break you. Always a positive thinker, always glass half full. So I just wanted to make sure that you heard those things. I just wanted to give you your flowers.
Cry.
And again,
Thank you.
9-time ACC, 6-time All-American, world medalist, top financial advisor, taking care of people, doing amazing things. And at the end of the day, you're a great person with great character. And your clients probably know this, but they need to know that they're in good hands for real, for real.
Aw, thank you so much. You're so sweet. I love you. You're so sweet.
Love you too, Nelrae.
That was sweet. Yeah, I love you. Thank you so much.
Indeed. Well, I just wanted to make sure that you knew how much you were appreciated. I appreciate you for honoring us, honoring me, and coming on my show. And thank you so much for sharing
honored that you
experience
asked.
and
Thank
knowledge.
you.
Indeed, indeed.
Thank you.
Well, all right.
Thank you, Marlon.
Ladies and gentlemen, and I want to say this right. You said Pakcha, the correct pronunciation?
Bakcha. So
Bakcha.
Phonetically,
Nelrae.
B-O-T-C-H.
Okay.
Bakcha.
Nelrae Pasha Ali, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, indeed.
Yeah,
thank you so much, Nelrae.
Thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.